Hello everyone, my name is Gary Gomes. Welcome to this video. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, especially how it applies to you and how it's reflected on the world around us. I've been a Vedic astrologer for roughly 30, going on 34 years now, no, 35 years now. And I'd like to talk with you about the state of the world, especially the state of um, the conflict in Iran, and also what's happening in Europe and the rest of the world. So the first thing I'd like to go to is, oh, by the way, if you do want to have readings or lessons with me, the best way to contact me is 508-525-0001. That's my phone number, but you can also text message me at that particular uh, contact point. You can also email me at Gary Gomes G, my name and the letter G, at gmail.com. So that's Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. So I'm going to try to do this faster. I've been promising to do it faster the previous 2 weeks, and I haven't succeeded as well as I would like to. And I'm going to try to do this mainly because I have a, a physical condition which makes it tough for me to sit down for a long time, and also because I don't want to bore you to tears with a lot of like what I would call minute details. So I'm going to go first of all to oh, and by the way, I did want to mention our store in New Bedford, Crystal Expectations. Crystal Expectations has been in business since 1988. We're located at 854 Brock Avenue, New Bedford, Massachusetts, 02744. The phone number of the store is 508-990-7898. And we have all kinds of wonderful things from all around the world there. We sell tarot cards, crystals, et cetera, et cetera. I do readings out of the store. Uh, and you're free to contact us. We do have set hours between Tuesday and Saturday, between roughly 1 and 6. But uh, our homes, our home is not located far from the store. So if you need us to come down for any kind of special need you have or any kind of product you want, just give me a call or a text on my uh, on my phone, and we'll see about setting up an appointment for you and making you happy. So with merchandise. So just want to make sure that's not misunderstood. Um, so uh, go down. Let's go down to um, the first chart. I'm gonna pull two charts up right now. The first chart I'm gonna pull up is the United States chart. And again, I apologize for being so USA centric, but the USA is an important power in the world, has been for years. It's the largest economy in the world. Um, it makes most of the, I won't say most of the trouble, but it certainly has more than its fair share of attention in the world press. And I just wanted to go over what seems to be going on right now because the United States, as of March 27th, just changed major planetary periods. So sorry about that. I really needed that. So the United States just changed from a Rahu Mercury Mahadasha, which is really, the Mercury is more the panic Mahadasha because it's connected with Rahu. Rahu makes um, people panic, it makes people anxious, and it makes people worried about the future. So we have seen a lot of that going on lately um, in the United States and around the world, especially regarding the United States actions. K2, on the other hand, is relatively fearless. So I think one of the things that's so there are several connotations or assignations to K2 or delineations to K2. There are a great many delineations to every single graha or planet. But K2 is surprise, it deals with theft, it deals with liberation, it deals with release. Okay, so it can also deal a little bit with humiliation. Okay, so that's another possible part of the United States, and it's not really loss. It's considered to be there. There's a signification for K2 that I really like, and the K2 is considered to be like a flag in a chart. So K2 is in the United States second house. It's ruled by Saturn because Saturn is the Lord of Capricorn. So K2 is in Capricorn. United States chart that I use, which was developed many, many years ago by Jim Kelleher. I made some very, I don't think I made any conscious modifications to it because Jim's chart works so well. But basically we have K2 in the second house. It's in what's called a stationary direct position, so it's a bit unusual for a planet to have that uh, condition, especially the nodes. And the nodes in India, largely in India, true uh, the true node configuration doesn't exist. That is, the nodes are considered to be going backwards all the time. I found that to be um, helpful for some things, so timing works a bit better for some things, but I found stationary direct nodes like these are also tend to be helpful. And that is the United States' unique relationship with um, dislike of regulation or rules, its military stance, um, its reputation for making up the rules as it goes along. Okay. And that's in the second house. Also, K2 can be a bit of, especially in combination with Mercury, can be a bit deceitful. And the United States has shown itself to be a bit deceitful from time to time. Um, and it would also give it sort of a difficult identity to pin down. That's why the United States at many times has seemed to have been split, like almost evenly down the middle. So this is a period in which we will be very, very split. Okay, the Rahu Ketu, that's the first thing I'm drawing from this change of major planetary periods. Also, Ketu by transit is in our ninth house. So our leaders will definitely be under attack. You know, regardless of how you feel about the current presidency, the president of the United States is the de facto leader of the country. So I'm not going to take that back. That's just the way it is. And the government will be a bit schismed and a bit at odds with itself. The other thing we have to look at right now is because of certain transits, and I'm going to show you this transit in a second. I'm going to swap this with where the planets are right now. Because of where Rahu is right now, you see Rahu is at 14 degrees and 30 minutes of Aquarius, and the moon is at 7 degrees, 14 minutes of Aquarius. Rahu affects the moon. Rahu is a very strong influence on the moon in a Vedic chart. The moon in um, in mundane astrology, the moon stands for the general public. So you do see uh, the moon in this position of being threatened by Rahu. If you go back here, and it's threatened about what? Well, it's threatened about things that come out of the ground. It's threatened about oil, and it's threatened about communication and messaging. Okay, so we have a lot of messaging coming out right now, which is either misleading or um, deceptive. And again, I'm going to say this is, and I've said this many times before, whenever we see those planets together, whenever we see Mars and Mercury together, it's not just one side that's doing it. And I have to stress that. Both sides of the political fence aren't acting in good faith. Okay, so there are certain things you're seeing that are going on that are being reported on, which are just blatant lies or exaggerations. So, so, so the recent forecast I've seen is that we're like, you know, I'll go to one side, and that is the Iranian regime is on its knees and it doesn't know what it's doing, and the other is that essentially the oil supply is going to be choked off because of all these things the Iranians have done, and we're going to see rampant inflation. And neither one is entirely true. Okay. Well, get an idea, and and I'll tell you why I think neither one is entirely true. Right now, Venus is really technically Venus and Mercury are the planets of commerce, pretty much in Vedic astrology. Venus rules Libra, and Mercury rules communications, which is connected with trading uh, and trading goods. So Venus just broke away from this rather nasty combination of being in conjunction with Mercury and Mars and Rahu, and it just escaped the Sun Saturn Venus conjunction that we had up until maybe a couple of days ago. But there is more what I would call free floating fear that this is going to turn into a long conflict, and, but we're also getting some what I would call crazy talk coming from both sides. Uh, Basically, essentially, I won't repeat it, but just both sides saying some pretty outrageous things. And there's not, we really won't know what the truth is really for about another week or so. Okay. And let me just see now. So now, so we just changed the Mahadasha today, literally, I'm sorry, 2 days ago. So let's see what's going on right now. Let's make this a now chart. Chart. Now chart. Okay, plus transit. Okay, so I gotta flip this. Yeah, wow. Flip a chart. Excuse me. Sorry this is taking so long, folks. Thanks for your patience. Yes, March 29th. And as a matter of fact, I've consciously been trying to hold consultations on ongoing issues down to a minimum, just because that Mars-Mercury conjunction is very tricky for accuracy. Okay, because it's too easy to panic with it. Okay, so this is where the planets are today on Sunday, March 29th, as I'm speaking with you. And you can see right now Venus is moving a little bit further along. Mars is moving a little bit further along, so it'll take really towards the end of the week before Mars is clear of this sign. And I know I promised that last week, but this is really true. And we'll get like a little bit of a break of like good information. It may be a little bit depressing, but good information towards the middle of the week. And but also right now, just because of where the moon is located, the the information that both sides are getting is just going to seem kind of depressing to the United States and to the leadership of the United States because the moon and K2 are in conjunction right now. And that'll continue really until about midweek. We'll get a clearer idea around midweek as to what's happening. And I think you'll find the United States will be in much better shape than a lot of people think it is right now. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you still won't see people trying to breed fear or um, trying to bring uncertainty into the equation. And there have been a lot of countries affected by oil price hikes. Um, but I think one of the things you'll also see is you'll get some hint of resolution towards the middle of the week, positive or negative, some hint of resolution towards the middle of the week. And also, as I said many times before, I don't think this is a war or a conflict which will last for a very long time. I think I gave it basically like 2 months, a 2 month window, and I would still stick with that. And I don't think the Iranian regime may cause some damage, definitely, but I don't think it'll end up being effectively repulsing Europe and the United States now, or Israel for that matter. And I know a lot of folks out there are unhappy with what Israel's doing, but Israel's chart is rather good right now. And I've said this many times before, and so I can't see them. I can't see them particularly losing this particular conflict. Um, you know, again, anybody can be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I, and I'll gladly admit that. But I know Israel's chart just looks a little bit too good right now. So I've covered this in previous videos. I don't want to take it back there right now. But K2 will have sort of a depressing effect on the economy until around July. And I think you'll see the economy start to come back in the United States around July 10th or so. Okay. So that's what I'm seeing from this particular chart. Now again, I have to be very careful myself because I'm in a planetary period which can make me overly optimistic or overly certain of myself. So I have to put that caveat about these things I'm telling you. You know, so I'm aware of weaknesses in my own chart, which can make me um, misjudge. And is it is it possible that um, that the Arab states will say, "Oh, we want you to stop this war," or Europe will say, "We want you to stop this conflict"? Yeah, it's definitely possible, but I don't think, at least from what I've seen, I don't think the United States is in bad um, shape as a lot of prognosticators are saying. Um, do I think this was a smart war or a smart conflict? As a former history major, I'm going to have to leave that to history because nobody really knows how the long-term ramifications of these things. Um, Vietnam was a waste of human lives, but Vietnam is actually an effective bulwark against China right now, as I said many times before. It's not really, it was a waste of American and Vietnamese lives, definitely. Um, did it turn out as well as it could have? Well, I don't know if there was any way of knowing that. Um, but I was not a defender of the Vietnam War when it was in action. I'm not necessarily a defender of this war that's being fought right now. But after April 15th, or after April 18th, excuse me, I think you'll see new alliances joining with the United States and after June 22nd. So I think that right now, this K2 period is very, very pessimistic. It feels like it wants to give up. That's one of K2's flaws. However, if you look at the chart, K2's Lord is in the 10th house, and I never judge K2 or Rahu by sign placements. I always judge them by where the Lord of the sign is placed. And essentially, Saturn is in the 10th house. This is what I would call a dominating K2. Okay, so there'll be unusual or unexpected breaks. There'll certainly be financial damage done, but there'll be unexpected breaks. Um, and let's look at Iran. And I think breaks in favor of the United States because, like I said, K2 is pretty fearless. That's both its blessing and its curse, to be honest with you. Here's Iran. So Iran is a Scorpio rising. Yeah, it's got Mars and Mercury in the fifth house. That Mars Mercury conjunction will be there within about 2 weeks for Mercury, within about 1 week for Mars. So you will see a slight uptick in good news. And also, Iran is benefiting somewhat from um, Mars and Mercury being in this particular sign. But the Mars Mercury conjunction in the Iranian and the Sun is the Lord of the ninth house in this chart, but it's also what's called a Boudica planet. So that's a benefic planet which can give bad results. So that can give disruptions or um, downplays to leadership or usurpations of leaders. And one of the things I'd like to draw your attention to is that Saturn is in the sign right now. So that will make Iran very determined, but it will also, I think, hurt Iran because Saturn's heading towards its lowest point of strength in the Vedic chart. So, and Saturn's also aspecting Iran's moon. So this will make it stubborn, but it doesn't look like a good period for Iran. Iran is until July 7th of 2026 in a Saturn subperiod. And this affects the government. So the government is essentially, so the ninth house is the house of government. We have a Saturn Rahu conjunction in the ninth house. It's afflicted by Ketu. Ketu takes out Rahu's pretensions and it can usurp people from power. So this doesn't mean that we won't see attempts to usurp the current administration from power over the next few years. That's something which is um, President Trump has managed to alienate people in his own party with this conflict. So let's see what he's going through as quickly. But there have been, if you look at different parts of the world, energy prices have been most severely affected in um, parts of Western Europe and to a certain extent, Canada seems to be the most consistently damaged. But Canada also has a policy, and I'm not criticizing Canada's policy, but Canada also has what's called a net zero policy. So they were, excuse me, so they were already on a low supply threshold with oil. Uh, so net zero essentially is net zero carbon emissions. So they were trying to decrease their dependence on on fossil fuels, and fossil fuels are already expensive in Canada. They're not welcome there largely, and certain parts of the country um, are essentially rebelling against this. The other thing I want you to keep your eyes on over the next couple of weeks is um, because it's being lost in the broader scope of the. So again, I'm going to stick with that within a couple of months. The conflict will be over. Either the United States will declare victory or it will have an out victory. And I think, let me see if I can get this to work properly. My apologies, folks. So President Trump has this, right now he's in a Jupiter subperiod, Mercury subperiod after April 1st to April 9th. Some disgrace or some embarrassment. Um, but after April 30th to May 7th, his confidence will come back. May 7th to May 18th, again, some embarrassment. May 18th through June 15th, you'll see, I would say, um, he's in a Mars subperiod, May 18th to May 26th. So some concern about oil and gasoline prices, maybe some concerns about his personal safety. And after May 26th to June 15th, he'll make a recovery. Now the Saturn subperiod over here between June 15th to November 18th is particularly dangerous for Trump. But he did actually win the presidential election during a Saturn subperiod, if I recall correctly. Let me just look back here. Let's see what period he was in 2024. Oh no, he was in a Venus subperiod. So Venus is in the same sign with Saturn. They're both negative planets. Um, for his chart, Venus is in the 12th house. Um, November 4th, he was in a moon subperiod and during and his moon is debilitated. So that's kind of, so he had he won re-election in 2 week sub-periods. The transits were helping him a great deal at that particular time. They'll still be helping him in June and into July because Jupiter will be in this particular sign. So that will give some success overseas. So I'm tending to think he has a chance of holding on to a majority in the House and the Senate. I'll look at that in more detail as we go forward. I know that looks really unlikely right now, but that's what the general indications are in astrology right now, right at this moment. That doesn't mean they're etched in stone, but that's what I'm seeing as being the general tendencies. Um, let's go over to. But the one thing I did want you to pay close attention to, so this is outside of Trump's chart, is the most of Europe, the fact that most of Europe is tending to turn right. So I'm not going to look at the individual charts, I'll just look at the now chart. So so essentially, let me get out of Donald Trump's chart. Hold on a second. Um, oh, Iran's going to have a birthday pretty soon, too. That's interesting. All right. So I should look at Iran's Varshapol chart, but um, the Varshapol's the annual chart, but I want to make this lengthier than I have to. Um, there's nothing that shows up in the Varshapol chart that doesn't show up in the regular birth chart. It's just a bit more detail. So, um, but if we look at this now chart, we're seeing a lot of, or a great many European powers losing seats to the far right, to the nationalist parties. Germany just lost a local election, or it took a hit in a local election. France looks like it's veering more and more towards the right-wing party. Uh, Netherlands already turned right. Italy turned right quite a while ago. And so that doesn't necessarily mean these folks are on board with what's happening in Iran. But the thing of it is, most of the governments in Europe are turning um, more conservative, more averse to open migration policies. And that's really what it is. They're becoming more nationalist in their economic interests. So that's going to be something that will be worthwhile looking at over the next 6 to 9 months because these countries have maintained, even when conservative administrations have come into office, they've maintained this very strong humanist welfare state orientation. And I think one of the things that's happened over the past few years is they've just said they can't absorb more people. They really can't do it. Poland, there's a variety of countries. There are more countries that are veering right than veering left in Europe. Um, Spain is still has a left-leaning government, and maybe veering in that direction after a few years of having a more right-wing government. Um, but the bigger actors, it becomes more significant when the bigger actors like France, Germany, Italy, tend to go in that particular direction. And just to make it clear, this doesn't mean these are military dictatorships. Far from it. These are essentially what I would call conservative nationalist governments. So for some people, there's no distinction of that. For other people, people who think about what the terms actually mean, there is a distinction as opposed to what they've been told they mean. So we're going to be looking at more of a right-wing orientation, less more national pride, more less, and this will continue, especially as more national pride, more interest in protecting existing institutions, and this will happen. This will peak when Jupiter enters Cancer this summertime, and will continue to peak over the next couple of years. All right, so that's something else to keep in mind. Let's look at India just quickly. You'll find it. Nation, India. Yeah. Told you I wasn't in my right mind today. All right, so India is right now is in a Saturn. Oops, it's not in a Saturn subperiod. Is in a Rahu subperiod. So it's a little bit uncertain about the future, but it will turn more nationalistic after April 2nd through May 24th. Now, Indian nationalism may be different than what we know about Western nationalism, but basically it's really a return to core values, and they'll be a little bit um, more determined to be independent, to be by themselves. China, well, let's just look quickly at China, and they'll start as of April 2nd. China and Indian politics is very complicated. I would never um, I'm far from an expert on Indian politics. Um, China is in this Mercury Mahadasha, which is not really an honest Mahadasha for them. I'm not saying the United States is more honest or less honest, but I'm sorry, China is really in a very acquisitive state right now, extremely acquisitive state right now. And it's in a moon subperiod. So the moon's lord is Saturn. So this period should be relatively good for its ambitions, especially after April 28th. But I'm still seeing India being in a state where it's going to be stealing more resources than contributing more resources. And I'm still seeing India possibly still maintaining a downward cycle. Uh, yeah. And it's not necessarily just because I have anything against China. It's because Mercury Mahadashas, even if Mercury is exalted, tend to be very uneven affairs. Mercury changes signs a lot. It tends to give like sudden boosts and sudden falls. That's from experience. That's not even from a classical text. And this is what I would call a making up stories combination right here. Now let's look at Russia just quickly, because because we also don't want to know when Russia's gonna stop pounding on the Ukraine. Russia has, yes. So the earliest date I can see for that is May 25th. That's really the earliest date I can see that happening right now. And I know a few years ago I didn't think they would invade because I didn't think they would be that reckless, but I was wrong. And I readily admit I was wrong. Ukraine, let me just see now. Ukraine, just quickly. Yeah, so again, this is how the news cycle works. So there's a big conflict going on somewhere, even though there's still a big conflict going on somewhere else, it tends to get lopped out of the news cycle. Okay, so Ukraine is not in a good position. It's in a 7.5 year period of Saturn. It's Saturn's in its first house. It's in a Jupiter subperiod. Jupiter's in its sixth house. So that indicates fighting after June 21st. Hopefully there'll be a resolution of some kind and Ukraine can return to a more peaceful life. Um, I'm not going to predict who's going to be quote unquote the winner in this conflict. Um, the overall impression I get is that if Russia only gets um, a limited period, limited parts of land, then Ukraine can count itself as being a winner, and that's essentially that may sound very very generous, but to Russia, but um, I I I think the idea that they were they Ukraine wasn't swallowed, that's one thing, but that was with the aid of a lot of outside resources from uh, Europe and the United States, and I don't know if those countries are going to be able to maintain that level of support for much longer. Um, I'm not seeing anything disastrous happening to the economies, but uh, Europe is Europe and especially UK is not going to recover from this particular upset anytime soon. I think UK is on um, UK is on the verge of a governmental change. I'd be really shocked if it wasn't. If they didn't have a changing government. Um, but we'll have to wait and see. But good for me. Yeah, we'll just go there for a second. Ah, why is this doing this to me? So there's some of the words I use. Act of union, I think it was. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so I don't know who picked this chart for the UK, but God, yeah, UK is in a very disruptive phase right now. Very close to what the United States is in, as I said last week. So it'll be going through major transformations until 2030. It'll be in a not a state of crisis, but a state of conflict over the next few years, uh, unfortunately. Um, yeah, and that's a shame because I actually like the UK. Um, but there's obviously some problems in the royal family. There's some problems with the prime minister. Venus rules the ninth house in this chart. So, and let's see now in this chart, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so over the next 4 to 5 years, there'll be major changes in government in the UK. I think you'll see a shift in government before August 29th. It is April 26th. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so let's go back to the main chart we're looking at for you folks. So let's talk about your charts and what's happening in your lives. So now that I've been depressed about the rest of the world, I'm really not depressed. It's essentially like watching a drama unfold. But there are real life circumstances and real life consequences involved. So we have a Moon K2 conjunction. I don't think the West is going to fall. If that's what a lot of people have on their minds, that's not going to happen. Um, some parts will be strengthened, some parts will be weakened. But a lot of people have been waiting for that to happen for years on end, and it's ebbed and flowed, but it hasn't fallen yet. Um, the West isn't one entity. We don't have like one country representing the West right now. As a matter of fact, the United States has a semblance of a European power, but it's not. It's something different. So drawing parallels between the UK, because it was the founder government, and the United States is a bit different. They're very, very different cultures. And the United States, what I would call a disruptor country. It it isn't afraid to make changes when it has to. The UK being a Virgo rising is going to be very bound and very critical of any shifts or reorientations in its traditions. The United States is going to be much more adventurous. So let's look at this, and it will disrupt itself in order to survive, as it's done several times already. So let's look at the chart for people around the world. This week, as I said, anxiety among the general population in terms of currency. Saturn and Sun are in the eighth house. That doesn't bode well for the Democratic Party in the United States, but overall, there'll be a lot of people fearful about economic conditions worsening. Mars, Mercury, Rahu, you're going to have to watch out for governments overall just misrepresenting themselves to you. Jupiter's in the 11th house, so this is optimistic for gains, for financial growth. Venus is in the ninth house, again, good for financial gains. So this isn't a bad chart. We have a lot of malefic influences in seventh house of relationships with other people, and the eighth house with hidden enemies. And confidence is not very strong right now. But overall luck is good. Overall financial gains are good. And Venus in the ninth house does indicate general luck in the markets. But again, there'll be panic around oil and also communications. So AI will be sort of like a big topic in the world. If we're talking about, so let's talk about the individual signs now. For Aries, Aries starts from April 15th, goes to May 15th using the sidereal or star-based zodiac. Um, and there will be a lot of focus on money for Aries um, this week and this month. Good financial growth for this particular sign. A lot of expenses, especially connected with bills and debts. That's sort of like a carryover, and that'll carry over for another, at least another couple of years, well, at least another few months. You'll have a Jupiter aspect on the sign in July, which will help it out a great deal, but the debts will still be there. Um, but this sign will be focused on financial gain. It'll be focused on doing things very well, very ethically. And Moon and Ketu, still some problems with children. Children may seem to be depressed or a little bit unreliable. Financial gains through oil or through possible um, warning of bad times coming. That may sound funny. So let's say there'll be a lot of fear mongering about um, about economic collapse or things like that. Um, Especially for Aries, but I don't think it'll materialize. For Taurus, Taurus goes between May 15th to June 15th. Um, Taurus has its Lord in the 12th house, which is generally good for saving money. It has Saturn and Saturn aspecting the first house, which means this sign will have a great deal more responsibility this month, but also increased financial gains to the home. Jupiter's in the second house, so Taurus will actually put money in the bank this week. And Mars, Rahu, and Mercury are in the 10th house, which indicates a pretty heavy workload. Remember, all these planets are in what's called a Kala Sarpa Yoga. All the planets are between Rahu and Ketu, so it'll take several months before we see what's really happened during this transition. Um, Gemini, it goes from June 15th to July 15th, and this gives good work gains, excuse me, and good partnerships. So that actually looks good. Could be some minor trouble from the government. The government may be looking at your records a little bit more carefully, but I don't think it'll result in anything uh, like a crash or like debt collection. Venus is in the 11th house. That gives friends in high places. And Moon and Ketu are in the third house, so that gives a certain amount of anxiety to people. But again, it's more fear than it is reality based. But you do have to watch out for friends, especially people who seem to be close to you, who you think might have your best intentions at heart, but really don't. Um, let's go to, so this is Gemini, that's June 11th, I'm sorry, June 15th to July 15th. Cancer is July 15th through August 15th. And this sign is surrounded by, um, basically, it's surrounded by benefics because K2, so they have these things called a certain kind of yoga called Papakatara yoga. Um, I generally don't consider K2 to be part of a Papakatara yoga. Um, this is more of a Shubhakatara yoga. So the Cancer is surrounded by two good planets. You have Moon at 6 degrees and 20 minutes of Leo, and Jupiter at 21 degrees, 25 minutes of Gemini. So this protects this sign, but there will be some uncertainty about financial gains. There will be fear about family members maybe um, uh, taking money from you or lying to you about money. And there'll be some anxiety about money for this particular sign. Mars is in the seventh house, along with Rahu and Mercury. So people who you thought you could trust will be lying to others about you and finances. possibly the government. And but this doesn't mean this is universally true for every single Cancer out there. These are general significations. So your Cancer, don't worry about that. Don't get all hot and bothered about that. These are general indicators so that you can't really, for every sign, I would say not to trust my friends for at least another good couple of months, if I'm being totally honest with you. Just because the Mars Mercury conjunction is going to be really potent over the next couple of months. And so basically, you have to take the perspective that people, even people who say they're your friends, really will not do anything to help you unless it helps them. And they won't be above lying to save their skins. Um, so that's just a warning to you. That's not, I don't want you to be paranoid, but I'm just saying this combination is not a good combination. Um, and again, there'll be a potential for misrepresentation about your character and your finances. So just be careful about that. There's nothing really horrible happening here. Saturn and Sun are in the ninth house. That's generally a good combination, a lot of personal integrity from this combination. 10th house has Venus in it, and 12th house has Jupiter in it, so you will save money. You'll be protected at the last minute from monetary problems. For Leo, Leo goes from August 15th to September 15th, and we have a Moon K2 conjunction in this chart. Um, Again, this does indicate some anxiety about loss, some anxiety about financial hardship. This is a common theme in the chart. Even relationship partners being a little bit less honest with you than they probably should be about finances. Um, and also, maybe even family members taking money away from you. Saturn and Sun sit in the eighth house. This can give problems from established figures or from governmental figures. And Venus is in the ninth house, and also conservative people or people who are very bureaucratically oriented. Venus is in the ninth house. Venus is well placed in the ninth house. It does give good financial gains and good increase. And Jupiter in the 11th house means the person will get whatever they're going for. For Virgo, Virgo has no planets in the first house. Its Lord is, so it will be dealing, so Virgo's September 15th to October 15th. Um, Virgo will be dealing with people, uh, friends misrepresenting or turning on them from both this combination right here and also this combination right here. In terms of repairs, be careful about repair bills you get. Be careful about people misleading you financially. Sun and Saturn are in the seventh house. So that means um, any contract or any agreement you sign, you'll be stuck with for quite a while. So it's not a really good time to get involved in relationships, especially if you're uncertain about the person. Venus is in the eighth house. That's actually good for financial gains and good for financial growth through unexpected resources. So like what we call invisible gains, like either stocks or gifts from people. Jupiter's in the 10th house, good for career life, and also somewhat good for business relationships. For Libra, Libra has, but not romantic relationships. For Libra, Libra starts from October 15th, goes all the way through November 15th. This is also Libra, moon or rising sign, for those of you who know that. And any of the other sign placements could apply to moon sign or rising sign too, if you know what yours are. And if it's Western astrology, you know your moon in Western astrology, chances are it's going to be different in Vedic. So don't. Um, so just check on that. Um, there are free software packages around the internet where you can calculate your birth chart for no charge on a Vedic website, on several Vedic websites. So I'd encourage you to do that if you're curious about that at all. It won't help you interpret your charts, but it will at least let you know where uh, your rising sign and your moon are. For Libra, let's get back to Libra. Libra has Venus in the seventh house, so this will actually increase relationships with family members, and it'll also increase romantic feelings and friendships. Um, so this isn't bad. Mars is in the fifth house. Not a lot of luck with children. Children will seem to be very dissatisfied or very unhappy with you, and maybe even a little bit uh, difficult to deal with. Uh, that'll pass pretty soon. Health issues may arise for this sign because of the Sun-Saturn conjunction in this chart. The most common kinds of things are liver or kidney problems, but oftentimes it'll be things like arthritis too. Doesn't look like a long-lasting problem, but best to get it checked out. Jupiter is in the ninth house in this chart. Overall, the luck of this particular sign will be pretty good this month. And career-wise, you'll actually achieve some financial gains from unexpected sources. For Scorpio, Scorpio has um, Mars and Mercury, so Scorpio lasts between November 15th and December 15th in the Indian calendar. This is rough. This is rough. This isn't exact. Um, and so for this particular sign, we have Mars, Rahu, Mercury, and so this combination should be careful about fires. Basically, especially fires around the home, fires in cars, things like that. Accidents, it can be a little bit of an accident-prone combination with K2. So just be very careful around the house and be careful of it, especially if there seems to be any sign of fire close by. The other thing is, so this isn't to freak you out, just be mindful of it. Um, Saturn is in the fifth house along with the sun, gives good potential for educational gain and also luck connected with educational activities. Venus is in the sixth house. Um, Venus in the sixth house tends to give some problems with females or some problems with people who have artistic temperaments. Jupiter's in the eighth house, some potential for short-term um, unearned income, unexpected income. Career life is a little bit anxious this month, just because of that Moon K2 conjunction. It'll be especially anxious this week, but for most of the month. And that's about it for Scorpio. So just be wary of fires or fights at home and also in the car. That's the big warning I have for Scorpio. Doesn't necessarily mean every Scorpio will be afflicted like this. A lot of that will depend on whether or not you have planets in that particular sign or not. Okay, so let's go to Sagittarius. Sagittarius lasts roughly between December 15th through January 15th. And Sagittarius, we've already looked at it a lot with the United States chart, but there's a little bit of uh, a fearlessness right now going on with this chart because of the Mars-Mercury-Rahu combination. But there can be a tendency to take shortcuts or misrepresent yourself during this particular time in order to gain benefit. Saturn and Sun are in the fourth house. This can cause problems at home. Venus is in the fifth house. Good potential for romantic involvements or new friendships forming Jupiter's in the seventh house. I think from this particular chart, Jupiter in the seventh house is actually very good for Sagittarius rising. It gives increased status at home and it gives increased luck in dealing with um, law and even military matters or even conflicts. Moon and Ketu are in the ninth house. So again, it will seem like luck is blocked, at least over the next couple of days. And that's about it for Sagittarius. Um, for at least for right now. Now, again, this doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be problems. Sagittarius, by its very nature, tends to be a disruptive sign, but at the same time, it always rebuilds you differently and more strongly. The Saturn's also aspecting the first house, so you'll feel the extra weight of responsibility this week. Capricorn has no planets in the first house, but it does have its best planet, Venus, in the fourth house, so that will give prosperity to the home. There will be a tendency to take a little bit too much money, though, so be careful about ethical standards, especially from this chart. Jupiter aspects this sign, so it will be very easy to take extra money that isn't owed you uh, during this particular period. And Saturn and Sun are in the third house. So again, there's a lot of determination connected with the sign, but again, a little bit of pessimism as well. Moon and Ketu are in the uh, eighth house, so that can give some concern over long-term investments or financial status. And that's about it for Capricorn. I'm not seeing anything really that stands out except for more arguments for this sign over the next few weeks. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Mars, Rahu, and Mercury in this first house, and its best planet, Venus, is located in the third house. It's actually free of any malefic associations for the first time in about, I'd say about 4 months. So that's extremely good. And you'll actually see this sign actually start to make progress towards what it wants to acquire, what it wants to build. Saturn and Sun are in the second house, so it'll give a lot of work, a lot of financial burdens to the sign, but again, nothing you can't dig your way out of. Jupiter's in the fifth house, good for luck with children, good for luck with financial growth. Moon is in the seventh, along with Ketu, so relationship partners will seem a little bit on and off again, especially this week. They'll seem a little bit touchy or trying to think of the precise word, temperamental. Okay, so up one day, down the next. So that's about it for Aquarius. Um, Unusual relationship opportunities, so unusual partnerships. So that doesn't mean this is long term, but you'll get unusual opportunities. For Pisces, you have a Saturn Sun conjunction in Pisces. Um, this last, so Aquarius is between February 15th to March 15th. Pisces is March 15th through um, April 15th. And Capricorn, in case I didn't say it, is between December 15th and, I'm sorry, between January 15th and February 15th. For Pisces, we have Venus in the second house. So that should bring some financial gain. Still a lot of responsibility on the sign, especially this month, especially over the next couple of weeks. And Jupiter is in the fourth house. So this is not a bad combination. It gives growth to career advantages and also some growth of expenses, though. Moon and Case were in the sixth house. This is not a bad combination, really speaking, but it can give you some spiteful enemies or difficulties in making people happy. And we have Mars and Rahu in the 12th house, which can give some expenses connected with property or land or those kinds of things. So that's it for the general charts for this month. Let's turn to the time and space map. Okay, and we looked at this quite a few times before. Oh, okay, so that was really unexpectedly easy. Okay, so some panic and some scandal in Rahu in Alaska and Hawaii, and even some public um, dismay in those states. This isn't surprising because places like Hawaii, I've been to Hawaii. I was lucky enough to go to Hawaii once, and the oil prices are really high in Hawaii. So they import, um, they have to import so their um, most of their merchandise from other places. And there's also a little bit of, so this can bring some economic panic to to these areas. Although Alaska does have a lot of oil, again, uh, this is over the Aleutian Islands and southern Alaska, suddenly. And I think a lot of this has to do with claims of oil or even disruptions in pipelines with this Mars coming over here. There is a Saturn-Sun conjunction over um, northwestern Canada, and I've spoken about this time and time again. That part of the country is really not. Um, I won't say they're not doing well there, but they're feeling neglected or ignored um, by the rest of the country, and so is Alberta, and you'll also see something of this in Montana down through New Mexico. Now, one thing I do want to say about this is we do have some problems in California, Washington, and Oregon right now. Some fiscal um, crises are planning on increasing taxes in at least two out of those states, as far as I know. Now, that may not be significant to most working people, but certain employers have already started leaving the states involved, and set up their headquarters elsewhere. So, so at least from this chart, even though there's a Venus line going over here, which can bring increased rain to Mexico and New Mexico and Montana and central Canada, or sorry, west central Canada, um, it won't necessarily do great things for the economy. Um, we have no planetary lines passing over the middle of the country, uh, over the west states, like Texas and far north to North Dakota and South Dakota. And we do have a moon line running through Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia. I'm sorry, not West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. So moon can indicate some disruption of government in those parts of the world. The same is true of Cuba. I looked at Cuba, and I do think Cuba is next on the agenda for the United States, whether it's through military action or through political squeeze or through economic squeeze. Um, and so, there is some panic forming around the upper Northeast This is pretty much the area of the country I live in, but it's going up into Montreal and into Canada, and it'll probably hit Washington, D.C. as well. So whenever you see these lines clustered like this, they're not only going to hit the immediate area they cover, they're going to hit surrounding areas. So Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic will be in for some economic hard times and, or panics. And so Venezuela and Guyana and Brazil. And it looks to me like um, Bolivia and Colombia uh, and Peru and Chile and Argentina. So pretty much no country in South America escapes from some concern about oil shortages or some concern about uh, financial getting manufactured goods delivered to regions that want them. As a matter of fact, this combination, Sun-Saturn combination over the power centers of Brazil, essentially Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and to a lesser extent, Brasilia. Um, Brasilia is a little bit further in, but um, this is the general area, Rio and Sao Paulo. And I think you'll see some government crackdowns coming in Brazil because of these problems they're having. Um, and what's that line over there? Over There's a Jupiter line over Azores. Uh, so that's not necessarily a bad line. And so that country should be pretty well maintained. Well, that part of the country should be pretty well maintained. And that part of Portugal, I should be clear about that. And Jupiter is salvaging that place's traditions and culture. Um, there's also a Venus line running up over um, Ireland, Scotland, um, England. And interestingly enough, whenever I see Venus lines, I always tend to see these movements that try to correct social problems that have developed or activities connected with justice. It's just as strongly connected with justice and adjustment as any other planet is. And Spain, Portugal and Spain are bordering on that. So is the Ivory Coast. So you'll probably will see some governmental disruptions in those parts of the world. England, Scotland, Ireland, um, Portugal, and down to the west coast of Africa. Let's see now. We have a moon line running through Norway, Finland, um, not quite Central Europe, more like Poland, Czechoslovakia, Lithuania, down through Italy, and even into Austria. So essentially, um, a lot of the European Union states will be wanting changes or modifications in their existing agreements. The same is true in Nigeria, and same is true in uh, Congo, all the way down to um, Southwest Africa. You do see some Rahu and Mercury lines, so there can be some panic in Finland, Poland, Ukraine, down through Bulgaria, and into Greece, and into Egypt, and Sudan, all the way down to South India. So those regions should expect some disruptions in governments. Even Turkey, I think, will be affected by that. And some revolts. So there'll be more warlike activity in Ukraine. Definitely still is still on the books. And Mars is going through Turkey, so there may be some conflicts on the eastern side of Turkey. Also, this is touching awfully close to Israel. We know the Houthis have taken out military strikes on Israel, so that's pretty much reflected in this map. And Egypt, all the way down um, through Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, will have um, financial difficulties due to gas and oil. We have a Saturn Sun conjunction going over um, Russia, parts of Ukraine, um, Iran in particular is being hit pretty hard by these lines. So that indicates a kind of a dictatorial form of government. Arabia is getting hit by these lines as well, so that can indicate some suffering, some financial suffering in those areas, all the way down to Oman and beyond down to Madagascar. There's a Jupiter line going um, um, right through right through India, Pakistan. So, and there's also a Venus line going right through it. So essentially, the first one I should have said was a Venus line going right through those countries, and a Jupiter line supporting it. So we can expect some kind of moral conflict or moral dilemma happening in this region of India or in our Pakistan over the next month or so. Um, Finally, we go over to um, let me just see now. This is the moon's line, so there'll be some kind of public um, embarrassment in Vietnam, uh, Ceylon, and uh, China, and some kind of government scandal even in China. Whoops, sorry about that, folks. I got so excited when I saw that, I just couldn't contain myself. No, I really didn't get excited. I just sometimes don't know what I'm doing with my hands. And let me just do this a little differently. That might be a little clearer for you folks. Um, and the Moon Rahu conjunction, a lot of these governments are in trouble or um, besmirched by scandals or having trouble controlling the press. This goes all the way up and even reaches Korea. So you have to um, and we all know that Korea just went through a crisis because it just sentenced his former president to jail time for declaring martial law. So uh, this is interesting. Um, we have so some political scandals coming out of that part of the world, all the way from the Philippines to Borneo to Indonesia, and also parts of Western Africa. And let's just see now. There's a sun line going through Japan right now and a Mars line. So Japan may be involved in a conflict pretty soon. I hope not. That's not what I'm uh, egging for, but it looks like it's possible. And we have um, inner conflicts in Australia, especially regarding political philosophy and political implications of certain moves. Finally, we have a Venus line running through New Zealand. Essentially, all that does is give increased attention to the chorus, increased attention to music, but also increased attention to maintaining your health. Okay, so uh, ba basically, New Zealand needs to maintain its financial position better than it has been, and that's what that particular combination means to me. So it can mean heavy rains, obviously. That's not outside the realm of possibility, but it looks like there's going to be some kind of um, attempt to um, make it look too rough. So that's about it for me for this week. I hope I haven't truncated anything unnecessarily. As I said, I've had kind of an interesting week, and or I haven't said it, but I've had an interesting week, and I'm having uh, open with you as to what I'm having, and hopefully those will get better. Um, so let me leave you with these words. Um, uh, I don't want you to trust anybody without confirming over the next 2 months or so. And that isn't to make you paranoid. That isn't to make you lose your friends. That isn't to make you um, fearful of the future. Just double check and recheck all the news you get, and just double check and recheck everything you're being told, because right now emotions are running white hot. Um, there, and a lot of the media sources from both sides can't be trusted that much because they're all carrying messages with them. We're not, it's been a long time, I think, since we've seen, this is just my personal opinion, but it's been a long time since we've seen real news um, in this country. There was always a little bit of a bias connected with it, which is understandable, but I think it's just gotten worse. And there are some people trying to correct it, but we're still not getting really what I would call evidence-based uh, reporting. So um, I'm not casting aspersions. I'm not even um, getting into the motivations as to why people are doing it. Uh, but just be aware that you're not getting take news from multiple sources. Try to see if and also check political orientation. I'm not really a political channel. I'm not really interested in persuading you one way or the other. That's your decision. You're adults. I'm not trying to tell you, oh, don't listen to this person, listen to that person. But get an idea and double check it to make sure that what you're hearing is actually what's actually happening. Okay. All right. So that's it for me for this week. Just a friendly bit of advice from your old astrologer here. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I love you all. I will get to the Chinese zodiac, I promise. It's just been a lot more going on than I've been used to. Okay, thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you next week. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. If you would be so kind, please subscribe, share, like, comment. I'd love to get your comments. And and again, I think maybe within about another week we'll be able to move on to new topics. And it's mainly we're in the back waters of this Mercury retrograde where communications have gotten warped. I did say they would come to a vote over the congressional bypass probably by the end of the month. The vote, I think, occurred, I want to say Friday or Thursday. So I was pretty close on that. And so hopefully I'll be right uh, for you with these other things I've said, and it'll turn out very well for all of us. Okay, so God bless you all. Thanks for watching, and namaskar. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Be careful. Stay safe.